Man, I didn't think it would be so controversial.
You're just using it wrong. That's all.
No. I'm using it correctly. I eat differently. I'm speaking correctly.
All right.
You don't sound convinced.
I'm not.
I explained this to you already.
All right. I live in different culture. Here, dinner is at 9. So, and when you go out.
Yeah, man, that's weird.
But when I don't go out, I eat my dinner at 6. But it's still my dinner. And
no, that's too late
lunch
to eat.
Is 3, not dinner.
No. If you eat lunch, you do it at like noon.
At noon, I eat my second breakfast.
I don't do that. Second breakfast is called brunch. Yeah. Also, you don't do it at noon.
Yeah, I eat my breakfast at 9, brunch at noon, lunch at 3, and dinner at 6. If I go out, dinner at 9 with friends. That's it.
No. I eat breakfast at 8, brunch possibly at like 10 or 11. I eat dinner at 2 or 3, and then I don't eat for the rest of the day. Maybe some snack if I feel like it, or maybe a supper like at 9, but a small meal, not dinner.
There is no such thing as supper.
There.
Okay. Great. So this podcast episode is about meal definitions
and technology.
Hello, I'm Michael.
I'm Radek.
And this is The Podcast,
a sounding board for interesting ideas and insights. We discuss books we read and want to share with you,
as well as technology and productivity, which is what we do by day, working on our app, Nozbe.
Or whatever else comes to mind.
And we've been doing this for the last 100 episodes and counting.
This is the Podcast 101.
101. Exactly. Sounds really cool. Podcast 101.
Yeah. The Podcast 101.
Yeah.
Right. Before we begin, we should mention that we didn't have an episode 2 weeks ago. We didn't plan to have a break, but the logistics of recording abroad, and then we decided for some reason to also record a video of that, which I think was just a waste of time. And then it took us like 2 days to get it transferred because like many gigabyte files to our editor. And then like it didn't work out. And now we're finally both in Europe. I'm still kind of jet lagged. I got back yesterday, but I think we're good.
Yeah, we're back in our home offices, so the usual recording studios. And apparently you fixed your mic by just smashing it, so it's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. And I think this week we should discuss what happened last week or 2 weeks ago, which is what happened at WWDC. So essentially what Apple has announced.
Or more like what Apple announced and how it impacts us and what excites us. So we won't be just discussing everything because you can get it in any technological podcast. We will just be talking about our impressions from WWDC.
Right. We want to be discussing the news too much. Like we assume that if you're interested in this, you probably know the news, but we wanted to give our own commentary on what we think is relevant about this, what excites us, and what we didn't get, like what is not in the news. But my number one thing I wanted to ask you is whether you, Michael, got the iPad respect you deserve.
Yeah, I got some respect. Yeah, I got a lot of respect actually, because this was like the iOS 11, the iPad only edition. Mm-hmm. You know, I would call it the iPad only edition because it was very nice in the keynote. First, they started with iOS 11, some cool features, but then they said, but there's like the whole thing for the iPad, and they started like giving like a lot more features for the iPad. So for me, it was exactly what I can't say exactly what I wanted because I didn't actually know what I wanted. But it was exactly the kind of respect I wanted. So this kind of, stress on the iPad productivity, on making iPad better, a more powerful workhorse, on more powerful computer. And with that, as a bonus, I got new iPad hardware, which is smoking cool. So really, really fantastic.
It's almost surprising how close Federico Vitici was with his kind of predictions or his what he wanted out of iOS 11 for iPad. How closely this matches to what we actually got.
Yeah, I mean, especially the drag and drop. I think this is just like magical, and it even works kind of on the iPod Touch where I have my iOS 11. So really fantastic, and like all the way, like the floating window, the new dock, like all these things that just and really the drag and drop. Between split screen apps, it's just phenomenal. I mean, this is something I've been wanting for so long, and there were so many hacks to do it, and suddenly it's just there. And I can't wait to start using it. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm really curious as well to see how this fares in reality. Like how good it is in practice. And I don't mean just drag and drop, which looks super cool and so much more advanced than the drag and drop you can do on the Mac, just because you get to use multiple fingers at the same time. So like it blows my mind how you can literally start multiple drag sessions at the same time, like independent dragging sessions between like different apps. Like this is amazing. Like
you just pick it up, you just pick it up with one finger, and then just with the other finger start adding stuff to it, and then just move it there. It's just amazing. It's magical.
You can't do it on the Mac. Like the only interaction you can do while drag is in progress is you can scroll and you can do like keyboard shortcuts, but like you don't have a second pointer, right? So this is really cool, and like a lot of iPad improvements. It seems like this is iOS like iPad edition, just like you said. There's a bunch of like there's not a lot of obvious user-facing stuff on the iPhone. Like it also seems like this year we got a lot of technology, a lot of infrastructure. There's a lot of new capabilities in iOS 11 that will impact what kinds of apps are possible to build, and also like performance and other things. But there's very few things outside of iPad which are like directly visible to the users and not through apps that will be possible to have.
Yeah, we'll discuss them a little bit later, but I want to just keep talking about the iPad for a second.
Yeah.
So they gave us iPad hardware, which we already like kind of saw in the rumor sites. So the 10.5 inch suddenly appeared with smaller bezels. So it's really cool because the overall size of the iPad has not changed a lot. It's just slightly bigger, but the screen size is 20% more. So, of course, I ordered it already in the first week. And the funny thing was that I ordered it to my parents' house because my parents are coming to visit me, and I wanted to just have it, already, ordered, and and my parents, for them to pick it up. Well, and the estimate time of delivery was the 19th of June, which is like 3 days from now, from when we are recording. It's 16 when we are recording. So I said, it's slightly controversial because on 19th they will receive it, and on the 21st they will be flying to visit me. But I said, we should make it. So I ordered it online, and the best part is that my father, FaceTimed me on the June 13th. So the first day of the iPad launch, and he showed me the box, and he said, we already have it. So actually, Apple shipped it to me on the launch day, so I could have had it on the launch day, So Apple was faster than ever with this. So my father already has this iPad waiting for me, so I can't wait. And when they bring me the iPad, I'm gonna just right off the bat, I'm gonna install iOS 11 on it. So I'm not going to just even wait and try to work on it with iOS 10. I have iOS 10 on my iPad Pro 9.7, and I'm going to keep it there for stability, purposes for a second. But if after a while with iOS 11, I'm gonna be productive and getting stuff done on the 10.5 inch, I'm just gonna ditch the 9.7 entirely and just sell it. So I'm gonna be using the alpha beta, the early versions of iOS 11, the dev versions, right from the bat. I'm just not gonna even wait one day.
Yeah, as far as I'm hearing, the first beta is not very good, which is to be expected. But it shouldn't be that bad in 1 or 2 months. Well, I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that if Apple really does release a new iPad and a whole new bunch of stuff for the iPad on iOS, I'll probably buy one. I haven't done that yet because it's not yet available. Today I called my reseller and asked for it. They don't have it yet. They don't know when it's coming, but I got to play with the new iPad on right after the keynote on WWDC for a few seconds, and it was really cool. Like definitely bigger screen. The 120 hertz display looked quite amazing, though I didn't have a comparison, so I can't I don't have direct comparison to make sure this isn't just placebo. But from what I'm hearing, it actually is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna test it. I think for the first day, maybe on iOS 10, just to see, compare the iPads. But then I'm gonna just install, iOS 11 there, and hopefully, like by next week, maybe there will be another version of the beta. So maybe it will be already slightly improved, because
I would expect Monday.
Yeah, as far as I remember, last year they were really iterating fast. They were like every 2 weeks there was a new beta version, I think. So they should be pretty fast with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it really seems like they waited on that hardware to announce it, because it's great, but it's not such an obvious win with iOS 10. Like it really seems that the iPad story is not just the new hardware. The new hardware is nice, but it's the new hardware coupled with iOS 11 that makes for this new iPad, which is supposed to be, again, like much more compelling as a work tool, as a real general purpose computer, and not the kind of toy you used to play with for years.
Yeah, but if you are if you are shopping for an iPad now, you can already get it, and as you said, you will unlock all the bonus features when you get iOS 11 in the fall. But it's already with iOS 10, it's going to be substantially better than the one that we have now. It's faster than the 120 hertz thing, like lots of things. And people have been asking me, and you actually asked me about, the specs that, what should be the default specs to order it. Of course, the basic model is already fine with 64 gigabytes. It's already okay, but I wouldn't do it because it can get full pretty quickly. I have a 32 gigabyte iPad Pro 9.7, and it's constantly full, and I'm just suffering. But I just ordered it because it was supposed to be my dev tool. So my recommendation: go with 256 gigabyte model, because it's just middle of the range. 256 gigabytes, it's a lot, so you won't really, it's really hard
you won't run out.
No, you won't run out. It's impossible. So go with that one, and of course, go with LTE 4G, like cellular version. Mm-hmm. Many people are like, no, I have Wi-Fi in many places. Yeah, I understand. I get it. But the magic of the LTE iPad, of the cellular version of the iPad, is the fact that it's always online. And right now, you don't even have to buy a SIM card. You can just order a SIM, a gigabyte plan directly from the settings screen through Apple, and it's getting pretty cheap right now. So really, the magic of having the iPad online all the time and just pull out in the cafe. You don't even ask for the Wi-Fi password and then complain that the Wi-Fi sucks in this cafe or whatever. You just pull it out. You just work on it. You close it down. Like the moment I got the LTE iPad, and it was, I think my iPad 3 was with LTE, it was just blown away that I stopped caring about the Wi-Fi, around me. I did use Wi-Fi in my home office, but everywhere else, I was just using the iPad. I was online all the time, and it just worked magically. So really, it hurts me that it's $130 more. It shouldn't be that much money, but of course, Apple has the margins. They have to satisfy the shareholders. But anyway, $130. Use it, spend it, and you will thank me later. it's just a different experience. It's just magical experience, and now especially with roaming charges and things like that, it's just you can use the iPad, the gigabytes that you buy directly from Apple, especially through this offering. You can just use this anywhere in the world. So for me, I ordered my data plan here in my home and home country, and I went to the States, and I kept using iPad. I was online all the time. I just didn't care about Wi-Fi or anything like that. So it's really, really great. So that's my recommendation. 256 gigabytes with cellular. Get this one.
What Michael referred to with the roaming stuff is that out of as of June 15th, 2017, inside European Union, there's supposed to be no roaming charges for cellular connections. So if I have my Polish SIM card and I'm anywhere else in the EU, I can just use my data. I can make phone calls, text, and it doesn't cost me more, which is what it should have always been. Like roaming is such a thing of the past. So this is great. As for LTE, I asked you about recommendation, like should I get it? Because I can always tether to my iPhone. It's fine, right? And you were like you replied jet lagged at 4 a.m. Think about this. If you could have a Mac which was always online and had LTE, would you get it?
Exactly.
And that was to me like, oh. Right, like it wouldn't even be a question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I came up with this question, but it was like, I think it spoke to your heart right now. I mean, because then this would be magical to have your Mac online all the time, everywhere.
It would be magical because tethering works, but it's annoying to set up. It always takes me like a couple of minutes to get it to work, and it drains the battery so fast on the iPhone. So like if I'm going to use it for more than a short while, then I also need like a cable to connect it to my Mac or to a power bank or something like that, so that it doesn't run out of battery. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and especially with the 10.5 inch, which again, this is my recommendation for people who really appreciate the iPad, because the 12.9 inch is the bigger iPad. For me, it's just too big. It's clumsy to use it, and especially clumsy in the vertical mode. It's just too big. And the 10.5 inch, the smaller one, it's really easy to carry. So for me, I have this messenger bag, and I always carry it with me. The iPad, which we discussed in one of the shows previously. The thing is, I just pull it out, I just check something online, and just hide it. So like there is this there is no barrier of entry, no setting up, as you said, hotspot or tethering or things like that. Nothing like that. Asking for Wi-Fi password. No. You just pull it out, use it, close it down. It's just it's magical. It's how the iPad should be.
Yeah, one thing I'm disappointed about with the new iPad, the 10.5 inch, is that it didn't have what we thought it would have, which is the screen resolution of iPad Pro on the smaller screen. So essentially going to the pixel density of an iPad mini, which is the same as the pixel density on an iPhone. And that to me is a bummer. Like people speculate that, it's just because it wouldn't be comfortable to use. Now, I'm sure it wouldn't be comfortable to use for some people, but look, I have an iPad mini, which has the same number of pixels as the standard 9.7 inch iPad, and it's fine. Like nothing is too small. I can tap all the places just fine. And what they could have done is have this large amount of pixels, but then have a setting, kind of as an accessibility or just preference setting, to have everything as big as on a standard iPad. This is how it is on an iPhone Plus. I'm not sure if it isn't even part of the setup process that you choose if you want to have lots of stuff or everything big, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like a missed opportunity. Now, I'm sure they had a prototype of that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe once you get bigger than the 7.9 inches of an iPad mini, maybe it starts becoming, it just it isn't as comfortable anymore. But to me, it feels like everything is kind of too big on an iPad. Like now that I'm used to an iPad mini, like I want a bigger iPad because I want to have a lot more space. Not just a little more space, like the 10.5 inch has a little bit more space, but like a lot more space. So it seems like it's just like, it's a waste to have to not have more pixels.
Yeah, I'm also a little bit bummed by this. I mean, I also expected to have a proper like double mini screen size, and so the other thing is that if you have two apps in split screen 50% on the 10.5 inch, they're not iPad size apps, they're iPhone size apps. So they're really actually smaller and different apps. You can see it from Safari, for example, how it looks like. And on the 12.9 inch, they're fully blown iPad apps. Fully blown, just smaller, but still iPad apps. So there is a difference. But to me, there are still many cool things about the new iPad and the performance boost. And on ATP, I was listening to the ATP podcast, and Marco was laughing that his iPad 10.5 inch right now is more powerful than John Syracusa's 2008 Mac Pro. So it's amazing. I mean, what this thing is capable of.
Yeah. I looked at Geekbench results, and as long as you believe the benchmarks, it has some impressive numbers. Speaking of the screen resolution, one cynical explanation of this is that Apple wants to kind of artificially create this differentiation between the small iPad and the massive big real pro iPad, which is super big and super expensive. And that's why they do it. Maybe they just figured that if it would be exactly the same, just that the other one is bigger, there would be no reason for anyone to buy the bigger one, unless the bigger one also had that many more pixels. But then there would be like an insane, screen resolution for this 13-inch iPad. I don't know.
Yeah, this could be one of the reasons, but I think it's second reason also. The other reason would be the economies of scale. This way, they have exact same panels. Exact same screens. So screen sheets, with the same density of the, of the pixels, the same density for the Apple Pencil. Like everything is the same. They just cut it differently. So for them, economies of scale, it just makes more sense. I've
heard that, but I'm not sure if that's fully true. Like I don't know enough about like the manufacturing process to like verify this. I've heard this before, but I'm not sure if this isn't just like an urban legend and that's not actually how this works, and it doesn't matter.
I saw a few videos of how they do the screens, and they're really sheets of stuff. So for them, really to have the same type of sheet, it's always better than have two types of sheets. So
okay, but look, they already do iPad Mini, so they already do that. Just on a smaller scale.
They're not going to have Mini for a long time. It's going to be discontinued anyway, so they're going to get
maybe. But that would also suck. Like Mini is great, not for everything, not for you, but like it's just like, why have this massive screen while you can have a smaller screen that can do everything the same? Unless you are a pro and you want a bigger screen so you can have more stuff, and so that it's wide enough that you can have a keyboard that's comfortable to type with. Otherwise, like I feel like the Mini is underappreciated.
Yeah, I just bought the new old Mini for my wife because she had the Mini 2, and we decided to upgrade to Mini 4 before it disappears. And for her, this is the ideal size because it fits her purse. Most of her purses without any problem. So she really likes to carry it around all the time. So that's what she uses.
Yeah, it's great that it even fits in most of my like jeans back pockets, or like inside pockets of some jackets. Because it's so small, it just you can't see it, so you can like carry it around without the bag, and it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so. Thanks to this fact, I want to just, there's a confession I want to make. So if everything goes well, and I will get my new iPad next Wednesday. I'm going to configure it with iOS 11. It's going to work. And after a while, I'm just going to totally forget the other iPad I have. I'm going to just be using the iOS 11 beta iPad 10.5 inch. I'm going to sell both of my other iPad Pros. So here's the confession. Finally, I'm going to just get rid of some of the iPads from this household. So I'm going to sell the 12.9 inch.
So you're just going to have 4 iPads then?
In the home.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just going to have 4. Yeah. So just my wife's,
reasonable.
2 of my kids, and mine. Yes. So and not 7 or 6 or something. So
wait. So just you, like you will actually have just one iPad.
Yeah, that's the idea. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a big step, Michael.
Yeah, that's why this is this big confession. I'm gonna have the gigantic iPad Pro. I'm not gonna have the small one. I'm gonna sell both of these. I'm gonna just keep this one size.
So I would be very interested to discuss in a month or 2 or after iOS 11 is actually released. Like how do you feel about this in terms of like your productivity on an iPad as a real device, and also my impressions of this, because like it seems like so many things that were missing have been fixed, but fixing those will just uncover the stuff that is still missing. So I'm sure like it happens every year on WWDC. There's a period of excitement, and then there's a little bit of disappointment for the stuff that's still not there or that hasn't been implemented quite right.
You know, the thing that frustrates me with the iPad productivity in the technology field is the fact that really lots of technology writers, and I don't blame them, they're just used to the Mac way. The way you use the Mac, and really even with all these improvements in iOS 11, with all these cool new features, to shift to be able to use the iPad only or iPad as your main machine, you still really need to adjust. You still need to really change the way you work and think of your computer. It's like I keep repeating it when I had to. I mean, really, for me, it was a big deal when I had to switch from Windows to Mac. To the Mac OS 10, it was like I had to rethink lots of things. How I was using lots of apps and lots of things, the workflows, and it's the same with the iPad. iPad still, even with the Files app that they announced, iPad still is app based and not file based. I mean, they just made it easier to use the files, but it's still app based, and it's still like a different workflow, and it has right now the keyboard shortcuts and things like that, lots of different things. But on the other hand, iPad is a pleasure to use. I mean, with the touchscreen, it's just you're touching lots of things, and it's just easier to use lots of things, and it's just it's a pleasure. It's fun. But really, to start working on the iPad, to start really appreciating the iPad, you have to change your mindset. You have to start thinking a bit differently. I explained this in my iPad only book and in my articles on my blog. We'll link to these articles as well, that you have to just move to the cloud entirely. You have to just, there are lots of adjustments that you have to make. And people kind of expect that I'm going to just have this iPad and magically I'm going to be able to be productive on it, without actually changing anything about the way I work. And I'm sorry, this is not the case. Like for the newcomers, it is the case, because the newcomers, people who are not really proficient with computers, for them, it's just easier. You tap things and it just works. But for people who have ingrained Mac workflows and they're just technology journalists, especially, they are so old school that for them, it's really hard to imagine that it takes time and it takes readjustments. They don't want to do that. So I just read a few articles, a few reviews of the new iPad Pros, still saying, it's still this, and it's still, and I will still need the Mac for that and for that. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Very often, the things you say you will need a Mac for, you don't need a Mac anymore, but you're not even, you don't even care to check. You don't even care to see how you could, get these things done. So it's just, this technology journalism has this problem of being a little bit stuck with this thinking and not appreciating the iPad world. And the new ones, the newcomers, people who, for them, the iPad is the new thing, they just take it, use it, and enjoy it.
Well, I don't know. I remain skeptical. I understand your argument, and I will agree with most of it. Definitely, you can't expect that everything works the same way. Like that's the whole point. So it definitely takes adjustment, but I don't think the comparison with switching from Windows to Mac is apt. Like I think it's very different, and I think a lot of problems with using iPad as a real work tool are just fundamental to what iPad is. Just to the fact that it's a small screen, that all those things that I think we should discuss in the future. Like spend the whole episode on this, because that's an interesting fight. But what I will tell you is I'm definitely interested in giving it a real try, like treating it more seriously than before, just because hardware is now super impressive, and software with iOS 11 also creates a lot of new possibilities for it to be useful or productive.
I still remember. I mean, all these moments whenever I would show people how I use my iPad, and many people who are like you programmers, or like people who are really good with Macs and everything, they are impressed when they see what I can do on the iPad.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, you can pull this off and you can do this. So again, readjustments. It's different, different paradigm. It's really a different paradigm. And you're right. The Windows Mac is not that correct analogy here. Anyway, that's the thing. So just wanted to say that it takes more than just because a few of these articles were written like so I had to leave my Mac at home, so I decided I'm gonna leave for vacation for a week with an iPad and do the same things. I'm like, yeah, right. This is a recipe for failure, because you haven't prepared your workflows for going with the iPad. You just expect that you're just pull out your iPad and you're just gonna use it as a Mac. No, it's an iPad, not a Mac. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Wow, you're really emotional about this.
Yeah, I am, because it's like
no, I understand.
Because when people tell you this can't be done, and they're like, "Duh, I'm doing this all the time," you're like, "Come on," it's like people telling you that something is not true, and it's true for a fact, because
right.
it's that's why I'm emotional about it. But yeah.
All right, but let's talk about real computers now. What do you think about the Mac announcements on WWDC? I'm sorry, I had to say that.
Yeah, so the Mac announcements. So first of all, kudos for doing iterative improvements on the Mac.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there is new KB Lake, whatever, Intel chipset, and they just put it there because it's there. Yeah. Instead of saying, we'll put it in 3 years. So really fantastic. I mean, and
it used to be a norm, right? Like they used to upgrade it every 9 months or something. Like when there's new hardware, they just put it there, and it's a boring update, and it's nothing to write big headlines about. But if you're in the market to buy a new Mac, you have a new Mac, and not a Mac that, maybe I have to wait 6 more months or maybe 9 months or who knows how long until they actually put the latest and greatest hardware. Yeah,
I mean, just last year, before the new MacBook Pro announcements, you were able to buy a 3-year-old MacBook Pro for a price of a new one. So this was ridiculous, and now they are doing iterative upgrades. So I think it's great. And I don't understand why they upgraded the MacBook Air yet, but maybe because they just want to keep it because it's cheap, but they shouldn't be selling it anyway.
That's the only reason. You can feel it's a 7-year-old design, but they want to keep the $1,000 price point. I think they have to keep the $1,000 price point. Like the MacBook One, it's much more expensive, and it's a smaller screen. Like it's not yet a computer for everybody. It will be soon, but it's just like they have to make it cheaper, and they're not willing to make it cheaper, sacrificing their own margins. So they'll keep selling this really old stuff.
Yeah. So about these things, I think. I mean, again, my personal opinion, but again, I'm not a business person in this sense. I'm a business person with Nozbe. So here I can say whatever I want. But here with the selling hardware, I'm not. I don't know the margins. But for me, the fact that they're still selling the MacBook Air, which doesn't have a Retina display, and for me, selling any Mac without a Retina display, it's a bummer. Selling the iMac the without Retina display, the 21-inch, for the entry price point, whatever thing. And the entry-level iMacs with Fusion drives,
Oh,
I just
oh
don't
no!
know.
Wait! No! The entry-level iMac has a hard drive, no Fusion drive, just a hard drive.
No, I think
The
they,
hard
they
drive?
upgraded the specs. I think they
No.
right now they use the Fusion drives now.
They were very careful with the wording. They said that since now all of the 4K iMacs start with a Fusion drive. The entry level iMac.
The 5K iMac has a hard drive.
No. The 5K no, but the entry level has no Retina screen, has no SSD, not even as a Fusion drive, and has like cheap, simple laptop level processor. The entry level iMac is embarrassing.
Again, exactly my point. So, but the Retina iMacs, they start with Fusion drive, right?
Yeah, at least there's that.
Yeah, but Fusion drive, come on. I mean, this Fusion drive was like a hack to just, I mean, we should be using SSD all the time. I mean, so for like, the thing was, remember the times when the entry level iPhone was 16 gigabytes?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, I think 2 or 3 years ago was that. So we would tell our relatives.
No, I think even the 6S started with 16 gigabytes. It was really not a long time ago.
So you see? So anyway, we would have to tell to our relatives if they wanted to have an iPhone. Get the iPhone, but not the shitty one.
Yeah.
Don't get the 16 gigabyte. I mean, because many would get it, as an offer from their provider, like operator, like for 1 zloty or whatever, so like for a cheap price. But we would know that 16 gigabyte was going to be full in a second and wasn't going to be useful. But they kept selling it because they had to match the price point. And again, now with the iMacs, we still have to tell them, get an iMac, but not the shitty one. We have to explain which kind of configuration they should choose. And for me, I understand, the economy, the margins and whatever. But on the other hand, really, I don't know. I mean, again, maybe I'm too emotional about it, but I think, again, Apple, my ideal Apple should be setting the bar higher and not really selling shitty devices to match a price range. I mean, really, if you buy an iMac without a Retina display right now with a hard drive, you're buying like a 5-year-old computer or 6-year-old computer.
Yeah.
New.
Apple shouldn't be selling bad computers. Like it's like nickel and diming, and it just destroys their credibility and their brand when you get a computer if you're not technical enough to understand the difference, and you get this awesome computer from this awesome company and it's shit because it doesn't have an SSD. It's like the cheapest iMac, which is actually decent, is $1,300. Now, actually, no, $1,400. That's with a Fusion drive. And now you want an SSD and 16 gigabytes of RAM. So you have the cheapest iMac, which is actually good. It costs $1,700. Now, I don't know. That seems kind of like a lot. SSDs are not that expensive anymore. And to sell the iMac for $1,100, which has neither Retina display, no SSD, not even a Fusion drive, and like the cheapest, lowest level CPU, is just embarrassing. Like you used to be able to get a pretty good for its time iMac for not much more, for like $1,200 or something, and now you have this model which is relatively cheap for a Mac, but it's just no good at all. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. So my feelings are the same. They should be setting a bar, pretty high there, and the entry level should be great already. Should be a good stuff, and not it's okay-ish. Like really, the entry level should be better. But that's how it is. So anyway, our recommendation, if you're getting the new iMacs, of course, get the Retina one. I mean, really, seriously, get the Retina one and upgrade it to 16 gigabytes of RAM minimum and get the SSD drive. And if you need more space, you can get additional drive for additional stuff if you really need it, but really get the SSD because like on a day-to-day thing, you're going to use the SSD. It's going to be so much better. It's just a totally different kind of computing experience.
Yeah, I'm surprised how expensive Macs have become with their pricing strategy lately, because really you used to be able to get a pretty good Mac for close to the lowest end of Macs, and they're still pretty expensive compared to PCs, but you decided to have a Mac, right? But now you have this, again, cheapest good iMac is $1,700. If you want to buy a MacBook Pro, they used to sell the previous generation for $2,000, and then the new ones are $2,400. And I would be sure that they would make them cheaper after a year. That's what they did with the previous generation. They started at $2,200, and after a year, brought it down to $2,000. Makes sense, right? They didn't do it. So we got a spec bump. That's great. It's 20% faster, which is the same in CPU speed, which is the same difference between my current Mac and the one from 3 years ago. Great.
Yeah.
But it's still $2,400, which is really expensive.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, so the new announcement of the iMac Badass. So the one is it was really cool. I mean,
yeah.
Darth Vader kind of thing. But yeah, nothing I'm gonna buy. So and I'm excited about. So nothing from me there. But it looks great.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to buy the iMac Pro either. But it looks amazing. The specs sound impressive. And it, at this point it feels like an accident of history, because it seems like they reverted their course. They were going to discontinue Mac Pro and just have this iMac Pro, but they decided that actually, Pros really like this is great stuff for some people, but this is enough. Like they need to be able to put like truly the best hardware available on the planet in a Mac, and so they will make a Mac Pro probably next year. And so they'll have this model, this iMac Pro, which will fit in a very small niche between, not non-Pro iMacs and a Mac Pro.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Especially, I think especially as they discussed, I mean, some really professionals who just don't want to have too many things in their office, and having this additional base station or whatever, like it's the desktop thing, they would go with the iMac Pro, and fully spec'd, with lots of cores and whatever. Yeah. So back to the iOS though. We got Siri.
What do you mean?
Siri for Nozbe.
Oh, that's right. So they added the option. They added the capability for us to implement Siri for Nozbe.
Yeah.
Finally. I think that's the biggest deal for us for the next release of Nozbe. There's a bunch of smaller things we want to do. There's a bunch of things we could do. Like there's some really good improvements to the watch, but we really don't have time, unfortunately, for this for now. Yeah,
I mean, this for me, the Siri thing was the most important thing, because right now you have to do the hack, like you have to add a contact to your, with your individual Nozbe email, and then you just tell Siri to email this contact, and then through email, this email will go to Nozbe and convert it to a task, with the subject line of the email being the task and the body of the email being the comment to the task. So it is possible to use Siri with Nozbe, but it's a hack. And now it will be like more native, so it's going to be just easier for the average user to actually use Siri with Nozbe. So I can't wait for you to implement this. So I'm waiting for this, because this was like a big deal. They haven't announced more integrations with Siri, so actually they gave us some love, which is not expected. So. Great.
Yeah. From what I've heard, this has been the number one requested domain for Siri. So that's why they implemented it. That was indeed like the big haul, because it's like they call it like one domain for lists and notes. So it's not just Nozbe and our direct competitors and to-do apps of all sorts, but also notes-taking apps of all sorts. This is going to be a big deal for a lot of apps. And for some context, the thing here is that the Siri API doesn't give you full access to the transcript. You can't just take what the user said and decide if this fits you. Like the system defines domains for, say, ride sharing or adding a node, adding a task, stuff like that, and you can hook into it. So this is great because once it works, the system takes care of a lot of stuff for you. You have to do zero natural language processing. It works with all of the localizations for Siri.
Cool.
But the downside is that before Apple gave us this, we didn't have an option to do it at all.
Yeah. So with current version of emailing, through Siri, we have to do the parsing, and it not always works. And then with this, we will have just ready, things to take care of and just add them to Nozbe. So, yeah, Siri with Nozbe, for me, it's a great gift that we got on WWDC.
One more thing I'm really excited about is all of the things, again, that are pretty much invisible to the users of iOS directly. All of the frameworks available for developers and all of the technology that they've introduced. So what I've been told is that a lot of teams at Apple, or most teams at Apple, had up to 50% of their time to spend on whatever like refinements, performance work, stuff like that. That they wanted to. So there was like relatively small amount for most iOS, most software teams at Apple. There was relatively little work that they had to do to support like new hardware and stuff. So they could dedicate this time to improvements, refinements, stuff that just takes time, but is not super. That is not very very sexy. That is not a thing that's like a headline feature. So it's really cool that they've shipped their new file system, which is like a really difficult, risky transition that's boring for everybody, but actually it will create a lot of great new possibilities. They have Metal 2, which is like a lot more performance for graphics and GPU compute. They have Core ML, so they're really pushing with machine learning, and they have a framework for that that's quite easy to use. And they have they went with new video and photo codecs. So they finally went on a crusade against JPEG, which is like, it's kind of overdue, but like only Apple could do this.
Right.
And now my hot take on some of these. Until very recently, they've spoken nothing about machine learning, about VR, about AR, stuff like that. Like the whole industry was excited about it, and Apple said nothing. Last year, they started building small building blocks for machine learning. They added some support for neural networks in the in Metal, so for execution on the GPU, and an Accelerate framework, which is for low-level execution on the CPU. Now this year, they built on top of those two things Core ML, which allows you to just import trained, machine-trained models and execute them on all of Apple devices. And on top of Core ML, they added this framework called Vision, which does, vision. It will see all of the shapes around you, like all of the surfaces. It will recognize faces, text, will recognize a lot of things that's just in the field of vision of an iPhone. And I there's also like VR and AR stuff. I'm not sure if that's partly based on vision or if it's totally separate. But like here's my hot take on the Core ML and the vision stuff. What I think they're doing is they're building an autonomous car. Well, at this point, it's pretty much like a lot of people have been talking it for a long time that Apple is building a car, probably an autonomous car. But it's just like, what a clever, this is such an Apple thing to do, to leverage what they already have to prepare technology for their next big thing. And it's just like, it's perfect. Like they have hundreds of millions of running devices for them to test for years and improve
things.
Improve their machine learning infrastructure, to improve their, machine learned vision infrastructure. So the recognition of everything from cameras. And again, hundreds of millions of devices. that's a lot of possibility for them to test it, to fine tune it for years, maybe to do some internal stuff with collecting data for further machine learning. And like what a great way to kickstart, say 3-5 years down the road, a fully autonomous car, which will already have all of this infrastructure, perfected by then.
Yeah, I mean, we've been always thinking about Google, that Google has so many servers and so many such server capabilities that they can, leverage that to learn new things and, to really learn stuff. Apple is doing what Apple does best. They have so many devices, and so many devices running the latest iOS. So they actually, bragged about it, that they have more than 80% of people using iOS 10 right now. So this way they can really learn these things, and they can, they can leverage the machine learning with so many, as you said, so many millions of active iOS devices out in the wild. So we are actually, by using iOS devices, we just joined Apple Lab in a way.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this. Like, I'm really happy that they're taking this seriously, because it seems pretty clear that machine learning is going to be increasingly more and more important and useful for more and more applications. Some of them, it's not clear, like all of the use cases for machine learning, but there's already many. And for years, like Apple has been way behind on this. They still are behind on this. And, it didn't seem like they're taking it seriously. They didn't have any public infrastructure for this. They didn't talk about this. And, they also like, they don't collect, they don't have the advantage of collecting a lot of data. Like Apple is all about, we're protecting your privacy. We don't store your data, which, Google has so much user data to process for machine learning, among other things, right? Apple doesn't want to do that, which is great. And now the whole controversy about it is that Apple is going to be unable to compete with the likes of Google or Amazon even, with stuff like this, with autonomous cars, with machine learning, with anything that requires a lot of data. And so I'm really curious to see how this plays out, and I hope it's going to play out well for Apple. Not just because I like what Apple does and I want to continue using their devices and them not being shit, but I also hope that they succeed with their strategy of, we're going to protect your privacy. We're going to do end-to-end encryption. We're not going to collect your data and store it on our servers in a way that's accessible to us to process it, because we protect your privacy, and still achieve great results with stuff like machine learning. Like if they can prove to the world that they can actually be really good at this and compete with Google, but still putting those restrictions around them, I think that's going to be very impressive and very good for everybody. And I hope others will then follow suit.